Hello! Today we are going to cover how to configure the software on your PoE switch. We'll cover most, but not all of the options. If we didn't cover something and you'd like us to make a video about it, let us know in the comments below. First, open your favorite browser. Next, type in the IP. The default IP is 192.168.1.254. The default username is admin, all lowercase, and the default password is admin, also all lowercase. If you need help with the system, or you'd like to know more about a certain feature, you can click the help icon here in the top right corner. Clicking the help icon on any page will bring up the relevant guide for that page. You won't have to scroll through 50 pages of material trying to find what you need. If it's on the page, it should be in the help icon. To begin, on the left, click on Configuration, then System, then Information. Under System Contact, enter your preferred system contact information. We're going to name ours Terraferma, but you can enter any name you'd like. The system name is the name of the specific PoE switch you are setting up. Under System Information, you can enter the location of your PoE switch. We're going to leave this optional step blank for now. Before navigating away from this screen, remember to click Save. If you do not click Save, anything you have entered on this page will be deleted. When you do click Save, you should notice the changes you made immediately. If you want your changes to persist through a reboot or any loss of power, you'll also need to save startup config to save your changes to the storage on the PoE switch. We'll show you how to do that a little later in the video. Feel free to go ahead and dismiss this pop-up. If you entered a system location, you may not receive it. The LED Indicator tab allows you to switch on or off the external LED lights on your PoE switch. If the LEDs are disabled, there will be no way to see on the PoE switch if anything is connected or powered. In that case, the only way to check on it is to log into this software and look at the graphic on the right side of the screen. For now, we're going to leave our LEDs enabled. Remember to save any changes you make. Next up is IP configuration. Here, you can set up DNS. The IP interface is beneath. If you're on a smaller screen like us, the options might be cut off. Simply use the scroll bar at the bottom of the screen to scroll horizontally. If you have an IPv4 or IPv6, you can input them here. Our mask length here is 24. You might also know this as Class C or 255.255.255.0. If you have VLANs, you can add additional interfaces by clicking Add Interface. To add static network routes, you can set up basic routing in the IP route section. You can have certain IP addresses go to a certain gateway, and other IP addresses go to another gateway. Click Add Route, and remember to save any changes you make before moving on to another screen. To change time settings, click on the Time tab. Here, you can change settings like the time zone. Remember to save any changes you make before moving on. If you have a log server, you can set it up under the Log tab. Don't forget to save your changes. We won't go in depth on it for this video, but you can set up the event warnings in the Event Warnings tab. If a specific event happens, you can set it up so the PoE switch messages you, or that it turns certain things off like a port. The green Ethernet tab is where you can change the priority of different ports on your PoE switch. If a port is consuming too much power, you can optimize EEE for power. There, you can designate ports as a priority and ports that are less of a priority. In a situation where there isn't enough power for everything you have plugged in, the PoE switch will power the ports based on the priority that you set here. You can have a similar setup, but prioritize latency instead. On the drop-down menu, simply optimize EEE for latency. Remember to save any changes you make before moving on. The Ports tab allows you to set up and make changes in port settings. If you're on a smaller screen like us, you can use the scroll bar at the bottom of your screen to scroll horizontally. Here, you can configure each port to your needs. This drop-down menu also allows you to disable ports entirely. We're going to leave our ports set to auto for now. We are using a gigabit switch for this recording, so our maximum speed is up to 1 gigabit for each port. If you want to set up a DHCP server, you can do so on the DHCP tab. The Security tab contains security features like AAA. The Aggregation tab allows you to configure 2 ports as if they were 1 port. The Loop Protection tab helps the PoE switch decide what to do if there's a configuration error that results in a loop. You can decide what you want each port to do if it gets stuck in a loop. Under the Action menu, you can pick if you want a looping port to shut down, log, or both. Remember to save your changes before moving on. The next section we're going to cover today is the PoE tab. Under the PoE tab, you can select Power Budget. The Power Budget tab is where you can allocate power to specific ports. In our switch, you can see we have 56.1 volts currently at our disposal. This means we can supply the full 300 watts of power through the PoE switch. When class is selected at the top of the screen, only IEEE standard PoE options are available. For example, if you go to the pull down here under port 1, you will see PoE, PoE Plus, and PoE BT. The changes you make to each port are specific to that port, so you can have different types of PoE running on any of your ports. If you select class, the PoE switch and device will talk to each other and decide the maximum power allocated to that port. If you select allocation at the top instead, another option opens up under the ports. In allocation mode, you can select the maximum power allocated to each port. 4-pair PoE is a non-standard option, but it allows you to allocate specific wattages to a port. For example, we can make port 1 able to give up to 90 watts. This is a great option if you have something like a high-end infrared security camera. You could run the camera on 4-pair PoE at 90 watts, while IEEE PoE can only give you 60 watts. You can configure each port differently, or keep them identical. In our case, if all ports are listed with the same priority and they each try to pull 90 watts at once, the PoE switch will only give each device 75 watts so that it stays under the 300 watt maximum it could give out. This could potentially starve our security camera of power, which, as you can guess, is not a good thing. We could avoid this by designating our security camera on port 1 as critical and the devices connected to port 3 and 4 as low priority. That way, if there isn't enough power to go around, the PoE switch will prioritize critical ports over all other ports. The priority menu here is similar to the green Ethernet tab we covered earlier. The key difference is that setting priorities here only applies if you have the allocation mode selected. To prioritize ports using the class function, a timestamp on the screen should point you in the right direction. Changing an option using the star port at the top here will change all ports to follow what is selected under the star menu. Lastly, Dual PD, which stands for Dual PoE Device Check. This deals with a 2-check system to verify if a device is a high-power PoE device or not. When using 4-pair PoE, if you disable this, the port will be limited to 60 watts. This is because if the second check is disabled, the PoE switch will prioritize safety. Be sure to save any changes you make before moving on. Underneath Power Budget in the PoE tab is Ping Alive. Ping Alive is a great feature if you have devices that go to sleep. Let's use our high-tech security camera as an example. Our camera might go to sleep if it doesn't see motion for an hour. Ordinarily, this will cause the PoE port to think there's no camera there, and it will cut off the power. Ping Alive is a solution to this problem. Simply click Enable and enter the IP address of your device. We don't need the switch to ping the camera every minute, so we're going to also change the interval to 120 seconds. Now every 120 seconds, the switch will ping the IP address on port 1, preventing our camera from falling asleep and potentially losing power. The star option at the top will ping to the IP address listed on any port. Remember to save your changes. Another section of the PoE tab is called Persistent PoE. When you're updating the software on your PoE switch, or just in the case you need to reboot it, ordinarily your ports are disabled. This can cause problems if you have an important device connected that you need to power at all times. In our case, we don't want our security camera to lose power because the switch needed to reboot. If we click the Enable box on port 1 and then save, the port will provide power to our camera, even if the system is rebooting. Once you've made changes that you're happy with, you'll need to save your changes to the storage on the PoE switch. If you don't save these changes, and the device reboots or loses power, it's going to reset to its default settings. Saving your changes to the switch is called Save Startup Config. To save Startup Config, navigate to the Maintenance menu. Under Maintenance, click Configuration and Save Startup Config. Once on this screen, all you need to do is click the button that says Save Configuration. You should see this screen once the save is completed. If you made changes and you wish to go back to default settings, navigate to the Maintenance menu on the left side of the screen. Click Factory Defaults and you should see this screen. Click Yes, and the unit should reboot to factory default settings. We're not going to demonstrate this right now because it'll kick us out of the software and we would have to reconfigure our security camera. If you made changes that you don't like and you haven't saved them to Startup Config, you can go back to your previous Startup Config by restarting the device. To do so, navigate to the Maintenance menu on the left side of the screen and click Restart Device. Your screen should look something like this. If you click Yes, the screen will reboot and it will go back to your previous configuration. Your system will reboot for about a minute and it'll look something like this. Once the reboot is complete, the page should reload and look similar to this. This is the Information section of the System tab under the Monitor menu. If you're monitoring your system for any changes, make sure to click the Auto Refresh box on the top right here. It should automatically refresh the page every few seconds. If the switch is responding slowly for any reason, you can monitor the PoE switch's CPU on the CPU Load tab. This tab graphs the load the CPU and the switch is under. The IP Status tab shows you what devices are currently plugged into your switch, what VLAN they're on, and their MAC addresses. The Log tab is also located under the System tab. Here, you can see the changes we've made to the switch since the switch started logging. It should be noted that log messages are retained in the event of a reboot, but they will be lost if there is a loss of power. We recommend an event log server to retain all of your messages. Now let's navigate to the Ports tab and click Traffic Overview. Right away, you'll see that nothing is plugged into port 2. You can also see this on the graphic to the right of your screen. You can see that our first, third, and fourth ports are active, and they are green on the graphic. If you'd like to watch the screen for updates, make sure that you click Auto Refresh on this page. Every few seconds, the information on this screen should refresh. We're going to skip to the PoE tab on the Monitor menu. This tab shows you the status of the PoE and the devices connected to it. Remember to click Auto Refresh if you'd like updates every few seconds. On our screen, you'll be able to see port 1 has PoE available, but what's connected to it is not a PoE device. Port 3 and 4 do have PoE devices connected. Port 3 has a phone connected to it. You can see that it is a PoE device under port status. When the phone negotiated with the switch, it asked for up to 60 watts, and the PoE switch made 60 watts available to it. The Power Used section shows how much power the device is consuming. you can see the phone is only consuming 3.2 watts. Port 4 has our Li-Fi system hooked up to it. Currently, there aren't many users on the network, and it's only using 7.5 watts. At the bottom of the screen, you'll be able to see the totals for everything connected via PoE. Based on our configuration settings, the device has 270 watts to give out. 120 watts have been allocated to the 2 devices we've plugged into it, and only 10.6 watts are currently in use. Port reset is used to restart a single port. If our security camera from earlier goes into sleep mode, instead of dragging a ladder outside, you could reboot the port from the software and try to wake up your camera, or any other device connected to the port. We're going to go ahead and reboot port 3, where our phone is connected. It now shows that port 3 has no device connected. After a moment, the port status should update, and the status shows as the PoE is now turned on and the phone has been successfully rebooted. When you mouse over a port on the graphic, it will display what the PoE switch has negotiated with your device. You'll be able to see our rebooted phone has negotiated 100 full duplex, and if we go to our Li-Fi network, you'll see it has negotiated 1 gigabit full duplex. Next, we're going to navigate to the Diagnostics menu. From Diagnostics, click Ping IPv4. On this screen, you can ping a device to see if it's responding. We're going to ping our Li-Fi controller by entering its IP address and clicking Start. Now this will ping the controller 4 times, and this is the response. There are no packets lost, and pretty quick response times. If you want to ping an IPv6 device, it's the same setup as an IPv4 device. Trace routing is used when a device is far away. It will tell you where and how the PoE switch and the device are connected. We're just going to trace route the Li-Fi controller again by entering its IP address in the box and clicking Start. Since the PoE controller is a directly connected device, it was traced in only 1 hop. By default, you can have up to 30 hops. This leaves us with the rest of the maintenance menu. We demonstrated earlier how to restart the device and to reset to factory defaults. If you want to upload the latest version of software to your Switch, click Software, Upload, and you'll be able to see this screen. To get the latest version of software for your PoE Switch, contact the TerrafermaTV integrator you bought the PoE system from, or you can contact us directly at the email on the screen. If the latest version of software is already on your computer, click Local and choose File. Select your file and click Open. Once you click Open, you should see it located under Parameters. Simply click Upload to begin the process. You should watch it load, you should see the progress of the update, and the PoE switch should reboot. This process usually takes less than 3 minutes. The Image Select tab shows you the current image of the software that's on your PoE switch. If you start having issues with a newly uploaded image or it gets corrupted, you can revert it to an alternate image through this screen. Click Activate Alternate Image, and the PoE switch should revert to the alternate image. If you have a ton of PoE switches and you want to make changes to all of them, navigate to the Maintenance menu, click Configuration, and then click Download. Here, you can download a configuration, like the running config. Then, you can make the changes that you'd like on your computer and upload it on the Upload tab to expedite the process. Congratulations! You just set up your very own Terraferma PoE switch. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day.